it's my turn to drive. Driven to the margin of error, driven to the edge of control, driven to the margin of terror, driven to the edge of a deep dark hole.
In mid-August of '97, we finished the tour earlier that summer, and there was a message to call the office. It was urgent. One of the girls from our office told me what had happened. Neil's daughter was in a terrible car accident, lost her life. I mean, it was just such a horrible shock.
It was, I mean, I can still feel it today. It was the start of a whole lot of emotions that we'd never felt before. I had not had a friend who'd gone through anything like this.
Ray called me and told me about the accident, and I was just in shock, as everyone was.
You're just so unprepared for how devastating it is, and you just don't know what to do or how to help or any of that.
He could be such a private guy, and when news like this hits, you don't want to do the wrong thing. You don't want to try to comfort them and find out that you're only just comforting yourself.
Everything to do with the band ended at that moment. It just didn't seem important. It was not something you even thought about thinking about.
They didn't really know what to do with themselves, so they left Toronto. They got away from all those reminders. And then Jackie got sick. After she passed away, he was lost. And so he ran. He got on his motorcycle and ran.
When his wife died, he had to do what he needed to do to just find some kind of peace. He embarked on a long, very, very painful journey, just going and going and going and going.
Yeah, everybody was so worried about me. And in fact, there was a network I know among my friends and loved ones. Oh, I heard from him today. You know, I got a postcard, or he called. You know, they would all reassure each other. Because, yeah, anything could have happened to me, even by accident, let alone by design.
Fuck, we were so worried about him. But he, you know, he was at arm's length.
Neil needed time. To be honest, I had no real interest in music for about a year. I hardly played, hardly listened to music.
We were on sabbatical. We were shut down.
Basically, we're talking about a journey that stretched 55,000 miles, starting from Quebec and going up to the Arctic and around Alaska and out Mexico, across all of Mexico, from Baja across the whole Mexican mainland down to Belize. I go to the small towns and the back roads, generally stopping for the night in motels along the way. And I don't think in that whole 55,000 miles, I don't know if I was ever recognized once in a little town in a gas station or a motel or a diner. Because I'm just a guy sitting there with a hat on reading the book, you know? A lot of times I can just slip around and be a guy, and that's all I want from traveling, too. I just want to be a guy, and that's life enough for me. Travel has always been known as a soothing balm, you know, and even motion. From the time we're little babies, you know, we want to be rocked, and if a baby's crying, you can take it for a drive in the car and it calms down. That's the way I described it to myself at that time, that I was so stirred up into my little baby soul would only be soothed by motion. I traveled out of the darkest place a human being can come from, and it was landscapes, highways, and wildlife that revitalized me. The timeless landscapes gives your tiny existence a new perspective when you're among things that are millions of years old.
I remember getting postcards from him from wherever, and he was using different names. We have like about 6,000 nicknames for each other. So I would get a postcard with that nickname on it, so I knew who it was from. They were lifelines, you know, those little contacts. And he knew we were there somewhere, and he knew that we would be there if he wanted us to be there. All he had to do was reach out.
As far as the band was concerned, as things went on, it seemed less and less of a possibility that we would get back together, and it looked like, you know, the band was, basically it was 4 years that the band was done.
Oh, I thought it was over. You know, Alex and I would talk about it once in a while, but there was no point. You know, I don't want to play in Rush without those other two guys. You know, there's no replacing anybody in this band. It's just not possible. It is the band, the three of us, you know. Even though he's the new guy, he's just as important.
Those two guys were the most stable thing I had, my family and loved ones, and those that dared to stay around me through that time. And so hard that, you know, I would have walked.
My concern was just that he would be okay. And I thought it was pointless to think about it beyond that. After, I don't know, a year and a half, whatever, 2 years, I sensed that he would do it again, that he would be okay. I don't think you work that hard to be what most people consider is the best in the world at something and not go and do it again one day. I didn't know if it meant that it would take 5 years or 10 years, but I thought that one day he'd have to do that again.